Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Not a lot to talk about today's show, unfortunately. It's kind of obviously it's very slow, but let's get into the news. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Jalen Phillips and the Miami Dolphins' entire first round of the 2021 class has been signed. Obviously, it's only two players. But we got Waddle and Phillips signed. He signed a 4-year, $14 million deal. He will be signed through the 2024 season, which is awesome. What can I say about Jalen Phillips that I haven't already said? One of my favorite players of the draft. I was very excited that we got him where we got him at 18. I loved Najee Harris, and I think a lot of Dolphins fans did because of the running back situation, and the idea of pairing him with a high-end receiver in the first round was awesome. But if there was one player, and I mean only one player that I would have been okay with and actually liked better than Najee Harris, it would have been Jalen Phillips. So it was kind of a dream pick for me, and I think it was a dream pick for a lot of Dolphins fans. He's super talented. Obviously, the only issue with him is the injuries, and I think we're going to be totally fine with that. And one of the other interesting things about Jalen Phillips, not only did I love him, but people that I love that talk about the game, when you think about like Chris Collinsworth, Chris Sims, Phil Sims, they all said the same thing where like if it wasn't for the injuries, this guy would have been number one on a lot of people's boards in terms of a defensive player, and is the best defensive player in the draft. And those are guys that I really look to when I want to know something about a player or want to listen to someone talk about the game of football. I will always listen to those guys. Those guys obviously are been around the game for a long time, and they had nothing but glowing things to say about him. Obviously, it's just the injury thing, but like I said, when they talked about him, he was the best defensive player in the draft, and just really fun to watch. Very versatile. You're going to see him move all over the field for the Dolphins, and he's going to help them in so many different ways. It's going to be a very exciting 4 years. And the cool thing about Jalen Phillips is he's being added to a really, really, really talented young defense. And we're going to watch these guys play together for a long time, and it's going to be really fun. So I'm very excited to see him play. Very excited to see him play with this defense, and him and Ogba coming off the edge is going to be so fun to watch. And like I said, he's going to do a lot of different things in this defense. He's going to be standing up. He's going to have his hand in the ground. He might move inside sometimes. He's going to drop back in coverage. And those are some of the things he did in college, too. He did some coverage stuff in college. And he's really good against the run. And those are the two things that this defense really needed from that position, was to be able to rush for and be productive at it, which is what he brings, and be better in the run game. And he does that as well. And he makes the front more athletic. So when we're chasing down athletic quarterbacks like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, he's going to help contain them in the run game and help contain them in the pass game as well. So it kills so many things that this defense needed. And it really adds, like I said, two athletic defensive ends that can do a good job of corralling some of those more athletic quarterbacks. And like I said, he's really good in the run game. I could sit here and talk about Jalen Phillips all day. Didn't mean to repeat myself as much as I did right there. But you guys kind of get the gist. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Phillips, and like I said, definitely my favorite defensive player of the draft. And he's a really fun player to watch from that position, and carries on the tradition too, especially of this last century. We had Jason Taylor, then Cameron Wake. He passed the torch to Cameron Wake. Now Jalen Phillips, and hopefully he can continue that tradition. Let's move on from Jalen Phillips to another great Dolphins defender who is also a young player. Jerome Baker has signed with the Miami Dolphins. He's signed an extension, which is worth up to $39 million with $28 million guaranteed. It is again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. It is a 3-year deal, I believe. I'm very excited about this. And Adam Beasley, let's get this quote here. Never mind. This is kind of a useless quote. Obviously, he's going to be pairing with Benardrick McKinney. I want to make sure that I'm right about this, that it's a 3-year deal, because it doesn't exactly say that in Pro Football Rumors. So I want to make sure I'm right about this, but nonetheless, Jerome Baker, one of my favorite players on the team, one of my favorite players to watch. A super underrated player. It is a 3-year deal. Just wanted to make sure. It's a guaranteed 29, and the whole contract is 39 million in total. And there was a lot of questions with Jerome Baker, whether he'd be with the team after this year. Obviously, he was going into the final year of his contract, so was Mike Gesicki. And, obviously the Dolphins had some decisions to make. And I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it's what I believe. Jerome Baker is a better player than Mike Gesicki. He has been the 3 years he's been here. He still is. I still think he has a lot of room to grow. His stats last year, and I know maybe some of his advanced stat stuff, like from Pro Football Rumors, weren't as glowing. But if you look at his watching him play and then look at his stats, the dude almost had 10 sacks. He had 7 sacks last year. And, this is something that Omar Kelly always brings up, which is a valid point. He is one of the best blitzers that he had seen covering the Dolphins for, I don't know how long Omar's been covering, but it's over 10 years that he's seen on the team. And he's really good at it. And you know who else is really good at it? Bernardrick McKinney. And the thing that Jerome does so well and why he's such a vital piece of the defense is he's a great matchup piece. You can match him up with anybody. The guy can guard athletic tight ends. He can guard every receiving back in the league. And he's very, very good at it. Like, he is a matchup piece that any defensive coordinator would love to have in the passing game, especially in today's game where it is so pass heavy. And the running back is basically an extension of a receiver at this point. Whether they're throwing him screens, trying to get him to the open field as much as they can, and get him one-on-one. Jerome Baker, not only is he a great coverage player, he's also a good open field tackler, and he's super athletic. And he's, like I said, he's really good not only in pass coverage but blitzing the quarterback as well. And more physical than I think people give him credit for. And, I think he's played the most snaps out of it. He doesn't leave the field. I think he's played the most snaps, other than some secondary members, obviously, out of anybody on the defense these last 2 years. If I could be wrong about that, someone's going to have to check that. But I just by watching the games, I do believe that to be the case. At some points last year, we actually lined him up as an outside kind of rusher at outside linebacker, and a good example of that was against the Kansas City Chiefs when he had like that 25-yard sack. He was literally basically playing defensive end on that play, or a 3-4 outside Lawrence Taylor type of linebacker, and just destroyed the tackle and obviously sacked Eric Fisher, or not Eric Fisher, excuse me, Jerome. Oh my God, Patrick Mahomes, my bad. Thoughts all over the place. But yeah, Jerome Baker affects the game in so many different ways. And when we play that Amoeba defense, when we blitz like that, he's a vital part of it. Because he's such a great athlete. Like I said, he can drop back, when he's kind of cheating in the gap and showing blitz. He can kind of backpedal and really just cover a lot of ground because of his athleticism. And it's such a great asset to have in the passing game, especially when you blitz a lot. And not only that, but he's a threat to actually blitz. So offensive coordinators have to respect that when they watch the film. This is not someone who just is a great coverage guy. When he blitzes the quarterback, he is nothing to take lightly at all. I mean, like I said, he had 7.5 sacks last year. Very underrated player. And like I said, and I know that I'm repeating myself again, but underratedly versatile. There's not a lot of middle linebackers in the NFL in today's game that can rush the passer like that and cover like that. And the funny thing is McKinney, I think, is a less athletic and more physical version of Baker, and he's definitely better in the run game than Jerome is. But they're similar players, and they're going to complement each other well. I'm one of my favorite players of the last 3 years. I love Jerome. And I think he would have been a big, you cannot find another Jerome Baker. It would be very difficult to do. Like I said, it's not easy to find someone who is that versatile and can do so many different things for your defense, and especially in a defense where it calls for versatility. So he's a great scheme fit. He's a great piece fit in terms of just him being a part of the team for... I don't know why I said scheme fit and piece. Those are the same thing. Anyway, the point is he's going to be on this team for the foreseeable future, and he's a great player to have. And he would have been missed if he was gone. And again, this is his third year going into this defense at this position. I would expect him to have a better year than he did last year, especially with all of the additions we've made on defense. So very excited that Jerome is back with us, and it would have really sucked to see him go because he is such a good player. and very underrated. And like I said, I know the advanced stats might not support what I'm saying right now. And what I mean by that is like the Pro Football Focus numbers. But if you actually watch him play and you just look at his traditional stats, like if those were stats back in the, any time really, it's great because it's not like he's a thumper that's not good in coverage. He is good in coverage. So I don't know. I don't know why the advanced stuff isn't. Maybe it's because he's not the greatest in terms of getting off blocks in the run game, but he's not bad at it. So I don't know why the advanced numbers aren't so great on him. Because if you actually watch him play, he's great in coverage. He's great at rushing the passer. He's okay to good in the run game. So I don't know. I love Jerome. I'm glad he's going to be a Dolphin for the next 3 years. On a pretty good deal, too, for the Dolphins. Only $20 million of that guaranteed. His base salary isn't that high, and he's a great young player. That draft class was looking out to be pretty good with Gesicki and Jerome. It's funny to look at that class now and think about that Raekwon McMillan and Jerome Baker were in the same draft class. I do believe they were. Is that right, or were they a year apart? I think they're in the same draft class, and maybe not. Maybe they were a year apart. I think they were actually a year apart. My bad. But same team, same college team, and obviously one turned out to be a lot better. So let's get into this next news story. And this isn't really a news story. Well, it kind of is, and it kind of isn't. It's a lot of speculation. But this is more stuff on the Xavien Howard situation. Obviously, if you guys haven't been keeping up with the offseason, and we've reported on this in the past, he's not very happy with his contract right now. There's been some rumors that the Dolphins might be looking to trade him, and that's been rumors for the last 2 years. And obviously those things are building. He missed OTAs. He skipped out on those. We're going to see what happens with training camp. I don't think he'll miss it at all. I mean, there are other players that missed it as well, like Emmanuel Ogbah, that I think will be on the team. But people are concerned about it, obviously. And, there was a report earlier in the week that, like I said, that he would be on the trade block. A report just came out not too long ago from ESPN. I think Cameron Wolf reported on it. And he said, and I have it right here, he said that it's very unlikely that the Dolphins would trade Xavien Howard. When you think about how he's not even the highest paid corner on his team, and he obviously is the best defensive player on the team right now. And, where would this defense have been without all of those turnovers that he caused last year? It definitely wouldn't have been, in terms of statistically, it wouldn't have been as high as it was. And, X played so good out. He was a finalist in the Defensive Player of the Year voting. He was a great, and he not carried the defense, but he was such a big part of it that if it's like a Jenga tower or whatever the heck you call that game. If you pull the piece, it's all going to come falling down. And he is one of those players that if he's gone, the defense is not just worse, but it's much worse. And we saw the differences in terms of play calling defensively. It was completely different. I mean, we literally had the first 2 games. We tried to do some of that man stuff with Igbenogany. Obviously, that wasn't working. In the Jacksonville game, when Igbenogany got some time in that game because of Byron Jones' injury, we had to play zone coverage, a lot more. So you can kind of see. Now, I'm not saying, obviously X was hurt, but he didn't miss those games. My point is when a player, when you lose a corner like that in this scheme, there's a huge effect on it. To lose a player of his caliber, like I said, where would the defense have been without all of those turnovers? And, we play primarily man coverage. And since we didn't have such a great pass rush last year, we had to blitz most of the time. And that's when our defense was at its best, is when we were blitzing and pulling out of it and, really confusing people. That was the only reason we could do that consistently and it actually had success is because of players like X and Byron. And Byron was playing hurt all year, and so was X wasn't that healthy, at least at the beginning of the year. They were such a big part of that success, and X is the biggest part of it. Without him, like I said, I don't know, the defense would have been way worse than it was. Not way worse. It wouldn't have been a bad defense, but it wouldn't have been, top 6 in scoring defense, that's for sure. To lose X would be a huge deal. I hope the Dolphins can figure out something with him. I do think he deserves a pay raise, even though his extension was more recent. I do think he deserves it, and I do think he would be a big loss to the team for sure. Huge loss. I mean, it changes everything. I mean, who are you gonna have guard Stephon Diggs and the number one receiver in a primarily man-to-man defense, and a lot of times this defense plays cover one where there's no safety over the top. So, what are you going to do to replace that? I mean, we know that they've been stocking young guys, but those guys haven't shown anything yet. Those guys are unknown. X is exactly what the Dolphins try to draft to get, which is a number one bona fide corner. And a lot of people bring up the fact, since Brian came from New England, well, Bill dumped great play. That's not true. Bill Belichick invested in a lot of great corners over his time. Asante Samuel, who, he wanted to keep around for a little bit longer than he did. And he had him for a while there. Darrelle Revis, obviously, who he signed from the Jets. And Stephon Gilmore. Now, Bill has been able to get some of these guys on cheaper deals because of the pedigree that the Patriots have. And some of those guys are obviously veterans. But those positions are very high. I mean, for this scheme in particular, that is where you start, which is with the secondary. So to lose a guy that's top one at his position, in my opinion, the best corner in football. And, what is your number one job in defense? It's to turn the football over. What does X do the best out of any other DB in the league? Turn the football over. And he's a great cover player. He's not someone who is maybe like a Marcus Peters who, kind of goes outside of the realms of the defense a lot of the times and hurts his team because of it. He's not like that. He is a true blue cover guy, and he's not just a guy who gets picks. He's a great coverage player as well. So, like I said, his position, his obviously gift that he has as being the best at his position, and the need for that on this defense is too high to just get rid of him. I hope they figure it out. It would definitely hurt the defense. I think the defense, if X were to leave, I think the defense would not be it wouldn't be bad or anything. It would still be a good defense, but I don't think it would be nowhere near as dominant as it could be. And I think the Dolphins would be fools to just give that up. And this is something that we're going to talk about as well. There have been a lot of if the Dolphins were to get rid of X, what would be the most reasonable trade? And to me, the only reasonable trade, and I'm saying I'm stretching reasonable right now, would be to get rid of him for a quarterback. That's the only thing I would be okay with. If you have to add him as a piece in a trade or something like that, fine. I can live with that because it's a quarterback. Someone like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or Deshaun Watson in the future. I get that, but a lot of people have brought up Chandler Jones, who also has some contract things in Arizona that are iffy. That doesn't make the defense better at all. Adding a pass rusher like that, they have good enough pass rushers right now for this defense with Phillips and Ogba. It doesn't make the defense better. Minus X plus Chandler Jones makes it worse, and doesn't even make it better than having Chandler Jones or Xavien Howard on the same team. What I mean by that is if we got rid of X and say we didn't get Chandler Jones, it would be just as good if we just had Chandler Jones. I think what I'm saying is super confusing right now. Hopefully, I'm not explaining this well at all. What I'm saying is if I'm going to drop this analogy. The point is it doesn't make the defense better. I literally, that was a little, we'll move on. My point is it doesn't make the defense better. And it doesn't make the team better. Because Xavien Howard is such a big piece and provides so much for the defense, and that's where you start when you build a defense, or you build for this scheme, is with the secondary. To add another front seven player doesn't help that. Doesn't help the defense, doesn't help the scheme, doesn't help the team. So, to be honest with you, you're literally just trading Xavien Howard and getting pretty much nothing in return. That, to me, wouldn't make the defense any better than it would be if you had Xavien Howard. To me, it's just pretty much the same. Like I said, it would be like trading X for nothing. So yeah, I'm completely against the Chandler Jones thing. I think that's stupid. I would rather have like an extra first round pick than Chandler Jones. Not that Chandler Jones isn't a good player, because he is a good player, but he's an older player. And like I said, it's just redundant at that point to get another front seven player. They've already invested that enough. And like I said, this defense needs its secondary players, so I really don't see the positive in that trade. Now, if you were to get Chandler Jones like on a Melvin Ingram deal, that's different. Even though I think Melvin, to be honest with you, is probably a better fit for what we need and rotational player at this point. To give up, it's not like, to give up Xavien Howard, who was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year for Chandler Jones, is just a mistake in my opinion. Now, if you give up X and a piece for a quarterback, that's a different story. So I definitely am not for the Chandler Jones thing, and I hope X stays at least one more year. I think at least give us this last year to develop some of these younger guys, so we're a little bit better prepared for when he leaves. But if he left right now, there's just too many young players on this team to replace his the void that he would leave, and we need that. And the defense is the best side of the team as of right now, so we got to keep that intact. Now, like I said, if you were to go get Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, that's a different story. I don't know why I had to say that 3 different times, but let's move on from this story. I think that's the last news story. I don't think there's anything else we have to talk about today. We talked about Jerome Baker. We talked about Xavien Howard. We talked about who else did we talk about? Jalen Phillips. And that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, 21 minutes of news isn't bad though. God, I can't wait for the season to start, dude. Especially with the team being this, better. And better rain. Obviously, this is the best rain organization we've had in a long time. I'm very excited. So before we get into the fan Q&A, I want to address something. And I know we will get to Dolphins questions as fast as possible, but I do want to address this. A listener of this show who asks questions frequently, and I do appreciate that, has some sort of, I guess, gripe towards me. Or I don't know, and I wanted to address that right now. So this first question comes from Ahmed, and this is long. He says, "Why are you not dressing up for $2,000? Live a little and have some fun. You are hyper skeptical of anything." He says, "You are first of all, let's start right there. Obviously, I think he's joking when he says that. There's this guy." And his name's Mike Lewis. He obviously participates in the fan Q&A as well. I'm sure so many people have just clicked off. They're like, who the heck cares about this? And it's like, yeah, you're right. But anyway, Mike, this guy keeps bringing up that I need to dress up as a mascot and go to his bar mitzvah. I don't know what he keeps doing. I have no idea. So I guess that's the first. I guess that's a joke. Which obviously Mike Lewis is joking too, and I'm not offended by it or anything, I'm not upset about it. The reason I was like so skeptical was like, this has to be someone in my family messing with me. That's why I was like, But anyway, he goes on to say, you're hyper skeptical of anything fans in the comments have to say, yet passionately defend most front office moves that I have 100% faith in Adam Gase, pushing in Adam Gase we trust, through the Adam Gase we trust mantra, Tannehill fanboying, Cutler fanboying, then disowning him when Gase acknowledged failure. In your words, he puts the podcast date here, 9/6/20. Greer did not waste a pick on Rosen. And then he puts another podcast date on here, 12/6/17. You claim that Rosen, Darnold, and Luke Folk, Super Bowl caliber, would be better quarterbacks than Lamar and Baker. I don't remember saying that. Lamar and Baker, stop this hypocrisy, and if you want to call fans like me blind and blame CBS articles on fans like me, invite us on your show and let us read out Justin Herbert's stats for you, since you keep speculating mediocre Tua will eventually be a better pick compared to the all-time best rookie, the all-time best rookie quarterback. Okay, that's a little far-fetched. Predictions like yours are why I shouldn't give weight to cowards' opinions. And there's some more stuff that we have to get through too, but let's stop for a second. And I do want to, say this before we move on with some of the other things that he said, and I do want to address this. First of all, yes, and I've admitted this before. What does he say exactly here? He says, in Adam Gase we trust. Well, first of all, I was right about the Tannehill thing. I mean, Tannehill went on to be a great quarterback in Tennessee. Not just a good quarterback, a top 10 great quarterback in Tennessee. The people that were on Tannehill's side and blamed it on the organization and franchise were right. And the offensive line and all that stuff, they were right. So I do want to say that the Tannehill thing we were right about. The Jay Cutler thing, I was wrong about Jay Cutler. I think and it wasn't that I was infatuated with Jay Cutler. It was that we had a good nucleus at the time. Remember, we just were coming off a 10-win season. We had Jay Ajayi, who killed it that year, had multiple 200-yard performances. The man has his jersey in the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes, because of those performances. Jarvis Landry. We had Kenny Stills as a deep threat. We had a good offensive line at the time. And with the Unicorns. So we had a good run game. We kind of had an identity. And a lot of things went wrong that year. Obviously, Jay Cutler was awful. Omar Kelly said something interesting about that team where he said that, Adam Gase changed up the blocking scheme, which he did. He went away from a power run scheme, and a lot of players didn't like that. So there was a lot of things that went into that season that obviously Tannehill tore his ACL. And I really was like, dude, because we were coming off a great season. I was like, oh, we're finally kind of building something here. And then Tannehill tore his ACL. And then I think a lot of people, and me included, and there was a lot of people around the media, not just me, who liked the signing. And actually liked him as better than Tannehill, which is really stupid. Oh, we obviously had Devontae Parker that year as well. Liked him better than Tannehill. I wouldn't have went that far with it. But he was taking over a perceived 10-win team. So I think to kind of, at the time, it wasn't that crazy. Now looking back on it, it's a little bit harder to I'm not defending myself or anything. I was wrong about that. I was absolutely wrong about that. And maybe in the past I could have been a little bit too positive. But at the time, we were coming off a 10-win season. And obviously that draft didn't help things. Our first round pick that year was Charles Harris, who was something else I want to take. I had to talk myself into that too, which I regret doing. I was a little bit too positive on that pick. I really wanted TJ Watt that year. Obviously that didn't work out, and we got Charles Harris. But yeah, I take ownership of that. I was completely wrong about the Jay Cutler thing, and a lot of people were at the time. Not to make it better, but yeah, he was taking over a 10-win team, though, that made the playoffs. Obviously, we got destroyed by the Steelers in the wild card round. But I think a lot of that had to do with the positivity around the Jay Cutler signing. And then the Adam Gase thing, yeah, that's the thing the thing that I wish I could take back the most was the Adam Gase thing. My argument for Adam Gase at the time was Tannehill tore his ACL, messed up his knee twice. Obviously the bit that that was kind of where I was like, okay, we dealt with a lot of injuries those 2 years, and with offensive linemen too. We dealt with a lot of injuries in those 2 years. X got hurt one of those years, so we dealt with a lot of injuries, and that was kind of my thing with Adam Gase. Is like, let's get him a healthy team. He took a very mediocre Dolphins team in terms of, especially defensively, like it was a terrible defensive team. Historically bad in terms of Dolphins defenses, and he took that team to the playoffs. So that was kind of my thing. It's like we hadn't been to the playoffs of that team in almost 10 years. So we have seen a lot of regimes come and go, and he was the one guy that kind of turned it around. So yeah, I did defend him a little bit more than I should have. And another thing that I was wrong about at the time was that the Brian Flores hiring. I wanted Chris Richard, obviously former Legion of Boom defensive coordinator. I wanted him to be the next head coach of the team, and I didn't want Brian. And obviously Brian Flores ended up being the savior, and he's been fantastic so far. So, I'm gonna be wrong about things. I can't remember everything I say. I do this podcast every single week for the last 4 years. So I'm going to forget things that I say maybe. And I'm not always going to be right. Like, my opinions are going to be wrong sometimes. So yeah, I take complete ownership of that. That doesn't mean that me disagreeing with you though makes that, I don't know why. I guess he's bringing up. I just disagreed with one of your opinions. I don't know why he's bringing up all of this stuff that I was wrong about before, but clearly he's upset at me. And he goes on to say, "This is what I really wanted to address." And I like I said, those criticisms of me are completely. Those are true. Like those are things that I wish I could have taken back that I was wrong about. And there's other things we have to address before we move on to the other people's questions. But I have to address it. I can't let this go. He says. Then he goes on to say, "This is something I want to address." Oh, and by the whole Luke Falk thing, by the way, dude. Yeah, that I don't know if I ever said he would be better than Baker or Lamar. If I did, I'm sorry. Like I don't ever remember saying that. But yeah, Luke Falk did not pan out. A lot of people were on the Luke Falk train, and that did not work out at all. But let's move on from that. And I was wrong about Luke. I guess I was wrong about. I don't know how. I don't know. A lot of people were on the Luke Falk train though. I don't even think he was drafted. Who cares about Luke Falk? Let's move on. He says, and if you won't play, he says, okay, this is where I really wanted to address. He says, stop the hypocrisy. I don't know what the heck I'm a hypocrite about. That I'm a hypocrite about what? What am I a hypocrite about? He says, stop the hypocrisy, and if you want to call fans like me blind and blame CBS articles on fans like me, first of all, I never blamed that on you. And I thought I was kind of respectful in that video where I was like, if I said it, I didn't mean to call names or anything. I said that. And I thought I handled that as respectfully as I could. Sometimes I get out of control and get kind of passionate. And I say things that I didn't mean that act. Like, I was just passionate. And like I said in the video that I did, I think I was respectful about that kind of stuff. But and I never would disrespect the people that comment. And I never have. Like I love doing the fan Q&A every single week, and that's why I uploaded it, because I want to hear your guys' opinions. So, if I'm doing things where you guys don't want to ask questions, that's a problem, and I don't want to do that. And like I said in the video, I definitely want to be a little bit more respectful in terms of that stuff. So yeah, I apologize for that. But I definitely didn't blame you for the CBS article. And he says, then invite us on your show and let us read out Justin Herbert stats for you. I've never been against Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert. I don't know. I think I've been pretty fair in terms of being critical to Tua as well. I mean, I've been a champion this entire offseason for trading for a quarterback. I mean, Tua isn't perfect, but I still like the things that I liked about Tua coming out of college. I don't think those things have gone away. And by the way, we're talking about a rookie quarterback who went 11-5 right now, who you're trashing on. Tua will eventually, and then Herbert stats, since you keep speculating, mediocre Tua will eventually be a better pick compared to the all-time best rookie quarterback. Predictions like yours are why I shouldn't give weight to Cowherd's. I don't know what the heck that. I don't know. I don't watch Colin Cowherd's show, so I don't know. I guess I don't know what that means. And there were some other things that I want to address. Someone else replied to it, one of the other fans. And I know this is, if you clicked off, you clicked off, but I do want to address this. He says, this comes from Last World Productions, who's been very generous in asking questions for a good amount of time now. He says he definitely can be extremely biased at times and contradict himself, but every broadcaster and analyst does. The same, he just one of the fans who isn't always realistic. He tries to see good in every situation. Me, I'm not like that at all. I'm realistic about every move we make. Or not, I let it be known. I want to address this too, because I disagree with this a little bit. I think in the last year and 2 years and 3 years, to be honest with you, especially with how the Dolphins football has gone, I've gotten a lot better at that. And I think I have been a little bit too biased in terms of some situations, not all of them, but some of them. And I think I've gotten better at that, in terms of, seeing the forest from the trees a little bit. And so I think I have been getting better at that. And I think I have been critical of a lot of things. I mean, I've been critical about things that I was wrong about, like the Brian Flores hiring and stuff like that. I haven't always been positive about things. And I try to get my best, and I will continue to get better at it. I'm not saying this is a very fair criticism. And he's not wrong. And I'm not mad that he said it, because this is something that I do know. And I try to be I try to give you my opinion. That's basically it, as best as I can. And try to be as critical as I can be. With me giving you an honest opinion that I actually believe. That's what I try to do on this show. And I do think sometimes in the past, and I think I've gotten way better at it, that I could have sounded a little bit overly biased. Now, he says something here that he says, and at times he contradicts himself. Now, when you say things like this, and I think he's completely valid in this criticism. I don't know what I've contradicted myself over in the past. I'm pretty stern about my opinions on things, and I have admitted in the past that I was wrong about the Adam Gase thing. So I don't know what you mean by that. I don't think I do that. I don't think I do contradict myself, because I do kind of live and die on the hill of the things that I do, like my opinions on things. I don't think I would, go back on a lot of those things, but if I have, I couldn't tell you, dude, because I don't think I do that as a person, but maybe I did in the past, who knows. He says sometimes, he didn't say all the time. So I wanted to kind of address that, and I don't want to come off as some bitter, like, oh, these guys are morons. They're not. Last World's productions and some of Ahmed's criticisms are true, but some of them are not. And then Ahmed goes on to say, he says, at Last World's Productions, he's responding to the comment, he says, thank you for your comment, very true, and I understand that he will rebuke this with something similar. If fans are taking the time to comment and support his channel, he shouldn't call us blind for having opinions. CBS writes articles, and yes, media influences us, but poor team play / bad front office moves naturally result in frustration from fans. Instead of understanding where we come from, he loves to bash us without us having the opportunity to rebuke. Why? Too shy to bring people on his show. Heart emojis, every comment on this page except this one, he got called out, and then he goes on to call me a coward. Okay, first of all, this is what I want to address. Well, there's a lot of things that I would, love to address about this comment. I want to address this thing first, the not bringing people on the show thing. And it's not because I'm a coward. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I do not have the means to do so, unfortunately. And I'm already compiling a list of people that I'm going to have on the show when I do get the means to do this. And there will be guests on the show. And I'm very excited about that. But it has, and you know what, Ahmed? I will 1,000% allow you on the show. And allow you on the show. You're more than welcome to be on the show, and if you want to do the show, you absolutely will be added to the guest list and all of that stuff. And it has nothing to do with being a coward. It's just that I legitimately do not have the means to do some of that stuff. And there's a lot of things that I want to do with this show and with this channel that I just cannot do. And it has nothing to me for being shy or not wanting to show my face or anything like that. I legitimately do not have the equipment to do those things. Or I would have already done them. So that's why that stuff hasn't happened yet, and it has nothing to do with being a coward. And then he goes on to say, loves to bash us without letting us. So I don't think I bash anybody. Maybe I get a little bit too passionate, but if I am I don't think I bash people, and I'm definitely not rude or inconsiderate to other people's opinions. That's why I read them on the show, because I want to hear other people's opinions. Sometimes I don't agree with those opinions, and I try to be as respectful as I possibly can be. And if I have it in the past, then I'm sorry. And again, I do. And like I said, I admit that I was I shouldn't have called someone, blind over that. Maybe that was a little too far. And I said that in the video, and I do, like I said, I apologize, because I don't want to be a jerk about answering people's questions. That would be stupid for me to ask, hey, ask me a question, and I, crap all over it. I don't want to do that, so I apologize about that. And to Ahmed, And anybody else who felt like they were bashed in the show. I don't want you to feel that way. But the whole heart emojis thing, the reason I didn't heart your emojis is because I didn't like it. I didn't like the comment. I thought it was a little rude, and that's why I didn't like it. It had nothing to do with you personally, and like I've said in the past, I appreciate you coming onto the show and asking those things. And I've said that in the past to everybody. I think last week's episode went name for name and thanked everybody that asked the question. So I try to be as respectful and get to everybody's question and respect those people's opinions as much as I possibly can. And I'm looking forward to having those very same people on the show. Okay? And I'm looking forward to having you on the show where we can have a civil debate about stuff related to the Dolphins on the show. So, and that's all I wanted to address. I know that took probably, 10 minutes or 20 minutes? Good Lord. But I wanted to address that because I can't let something like that just fly. In terms of, if I was quiet about that, that'd look weird. So, again, I think that's everything. I think we addressed everything. And I definitely don't love to bash people. I definitely do not like to do that. And he says he shouldn't call us blind. First of all, I'm not calling you guys, not us blind. I called you blind. I've never called anyone else blind on this show. Maybe I called you blind, but I definitely do not do that to other people on the show. And when I said it, like I said, I apologize for it, and I apologize for it now. But I definitely do not do that to the listeners of the show. And like I said, some of the things that he said in his comment, in terms of those criticisms of the bias thing, and some of the other criticisms are true, and those are things that I look to get better on. And I'm looking forward to having everybody on the show. And the reason I would address this is I don't want to lose or come across as a jerk and lose the fan Q&A or something like that. That would be awful. So I just wanted to address those things, and let's move on to some Dolphins questions. and hopefully we can move on from this, Ahmed, and can, I don't know. Hopefully you do come on the show. We'll see. Let's move on to the first question. This question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, "Hi Stags, thanks for getting us through the NFL offseason and keeping us informed. Question: How do we beat the Ravens and Bills?" I think the things that we have to do a better job of when you look at our games against the Ravens and Bills is limit as much as we possibly can from the quarterback to breaking the pocket and using his feet to dominate the game, whether that's roll out and buy time so someone can get open downfield, or just roll out and gain a 40-yard gain, or, on some of the run design plays for the quarterback, gashing us. Those are the things that we've struggled with over those few years. If you guys remember when we played Tyrod Taylor when he was a Buffalo Bill, we struggled with that mightily. And I think, some of the additions we've made defensively this year are going to allow us to be better and allow us to rush forward and spy the quarterback. And if he does break the pocket, we have the athletes now that can chase those quarterbacks down. My biggest criticism of players that we've had in the past, like OV, Derek Shelby, Cameron Wake, and some of those traditional 4-3 defensive ends that we've had in the past, even someone like Charles Harris or someone like that, they're just not great athletes. And Cameron Wake was a great pass rusher, and if he was in the 80s and 90s and in early 2000s, he would have had a better career. He would have been a Hall of Famer. In today's game, where these quarterbacks can do so much with their legs, you have to have great athletes at those edge positions, and we just really haven't had that. And this year, I feel like we have that now, and we can deal with some of those things better. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction of beating teams like Buffalo and Baltimore. So to answer your question, Casey, and thank you for saying, all for keeping you guys informed, dude. First of all, this is like gravy, dude. Doing this show, I love doing this show. So, it's no skin off my back for sure. I love doing the show. So, but thanks for saying that. It means a lot when you read stuff like that and you do a show like this and people appreciate it. It means a lot. So this next question comes from Lost World Productions. He says, "I know you'll talk more excuse me, let me restart the question. This question comes from Lost World Productions. He says, I know you'll talk more than likely about this, but how do you feel about this Xavien Howard situation? How would it look if he's actually traded? Like I said, I think the defense would be still a good defense, but I don't think it would be as dominant as it could have the potential to be. And we would lose a great amount. And again, I don't think the young players that are behind him, like Igbenogany, are ready to step in those shoes. And players like Justin Coleman, who we picked up, are not even close to being the same player as Xavien Howard. Xavien Howard is a special. If he can keep this up over a long period of time, he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Like he has that special Champ Bailey knack for picking the ball off, like or Sante Samuel, like those great interceptors or Ty Law, those great interceptors of NFL history. He has whatever that gene is. He has it, and he's got a great feel for the game. So you're losing such a great player who was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. So the defense would be worse if he were traded. And like I said, it wouldn't make the defense better if he was traded for someone like Chandler Jones. It would still make it worse. So I think when you lose Xavien Howard, and defensive backs are so important to this scheme and how it's ran, to lose a player of his caliber would be terrible, terrible, terrible. So, yeah. That's a good question. This next question comes from Ethan, because I don't think a lot of people the way they think about, like, if X were to leave, like, what would I like? It would be terrible. It would not be good for this defense. That's for sure. If you guys remember what we had in 2019, not that it's a great, because it's not a good example because we have better depth now, but like look at how like the defense had to be ran back then, and even the difference when Byron Jones got hurt and Igbenogany had to step in, the play calling was completely different because of it. So the defense would look different, the scheme would be a little bit different, like a lot of things would change with X being gone. This next question comes from Ethan. It was a good question about Lost World. He says, what do you want to do with Howard's contract issue? He says, would you be open to trading Howard two first-round picks for Russell Wilson? That would be the only thing that I would be okay with. Like I said earlier in the video, if we were to trade Xavien, it would be for a quarterback and not for someone like Chandler Jones. If we had to do it, that's the only way I would be willing to do it. Or not like I'm the GM. That would be the only thing that I would be okay with as a fan if it were to happen. And again, I think we should pay. We're gonna have a lot of cap next year, so maybe they've told him like, hey man, we're gonna get you next year. Maybe they've had that conversation. Maybe they restructure his deal to where he gets a lot of guaranteed money next year because we have more cap space next year. Maybe something like that can be worked out. So hopefully that can be worked out because we definitely need X. This next question comes from SM. He says, was watching Ryan Mallett in the Spring League. Pretty interesting. I asked you this same question last year. Not sure you knew what I was talking about. Have you been keeping your eye on the players from the Spring League? I mean, last year I watched all of was it last year or 2 years ago? Like the AAA, what was the heck was that league called? And then the XFL, I watched some of it, and I did keep up with the league. You know, I would watch highlights, 15-minute highlight videos of how the game went or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, especially now, I definitely am not keeping up with that stuff. So no, I haven't been keeping up with that stuff this year. Lewis Jones, this question comes from Lewis. He says, will our run defense be better with the new additions? Yes. Bernardrick McKinney is one of the best run defenders in the league. He's such a good run defender. He's like he has good cover skills too. He's like an old school linebacker built for today's game. And so yeah, he's gonna help a great deal in that department. And so will Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips is fantastic at setting the edge in the defense and getting off blocks in the run game and making tackles. Even if he's trailing a running back, he's got great effort and energy that way where he never gives up on a play. So his presence and his physicality and his freakish athletic gifts with his strength, and like I said, he's got these long arms too. So all of those things are going to contribute to him being a great run defender. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, does Miami have one of the best groups? This is a great question. This question comes from TR3MC. He says, does Miami have one of the best groups of wide receivers in the NFL on paper? If not, which teams have better? I don't know if I would say that. I don't know if we're in like the top 13, I would say. I don't know if we're in the top 10. There's so many teams that have great receiving cores. I think we would be higher if the injury thing wasn't a thing, because a lot of these guys on the team have injury history. If they didn't have an injury history, and we knew that they were going to play all 17 games, I think they would be a little bit higher. But as of right now, I think they're like 13 and 12. Plus, they haven't played together yet, so those are all factors. But I think they're somewhere between 15 and 12 or 11, somewhere in there. I don't know if they're top 10 yet. They could definitely earn that spot. But they're definitely one of the best deep in terms of going down the field receiving cores. Like the speed on this team is definitely in the top 10 in terms of speed on a receiving core. It's definitely up in the top 10 of the NFL for sure. It might be in the top. I think it's definitely in the top 5. I mean, with Will Fuller and Waddle on the same team, and you got people like Jakeem Gray and Albert Wilson who are also on the team, it definitely is up there in terms of speed. But in terms of the best receiver cores in the league, I think it's definitely outside of the top 10, but it's close. And in terms of, to go in specifically in terms of other teams, that there's a lot of different teams. The Vikings have a great one. The Falcons used to. Now they don't. Who else am I forgetting? The Bills have a good one with Beasley. Now they have the Sanders and Diggs. Those guys complement each other well. Even though I think that in terms of talent, ours is better. But we'll have to see if they can prove it. Because I would rather have... If you had Josh Allen, what receiver core would you pick? Ours or theirs? Stephon Diggs is a big deal. That's a tough one. I would take ours though. I would take ours because I think we have more depth on our offense than they do. So, I think I would take ours actually. And who knows what? Maybe Waddle is a top 10 receiver. We'll see. But yeah, I think we're just outside of the top 10. This next question comes from Ender. He says, "Hello, Mr. Skaggs. Last year you did an in-depth episode of the 2020 draft. It was by far the best I've seen anyone do, and wanted to congratulate you. However, I haven't seen one for this year in 2021 Dolphins draft class. Would you consider doing one? I did do one on the 2021 draft class. It is on the channel if you want to check that out. It's titled Miami Dolphins Draft Edition and the date of which it came out. So, but I do appreciate that, Ender. It means a lot. I'm glad you enjoyed last year's episode. This next question comes from SM. He says, has the ship sailed on Cameron Wake reunion? He doesn't even... The thing about the Cameron Wake thing is he doesn't fit the scheme. And he would be the only way it would really work, and even as an edge rusher, I wouldn't even sub him in. Like I said, he doesn't have the sideline-to-sideline athleticism that you need in today's game to be a dominant defense against some of these mobile passers. He just doesn't have that anymore. Maybe as an interior rusher, but he just does not fit what this defense needs. He's not very versatile. He's like I said, he's older now, and he never really was the craziest of athletes. So he just doesn't fit. I think the ship has sailed. This next question comes from SM, and maybe he can transition inside as a third down situational pass rusher. That would be cool. I think he could probably do that. This next question comes from SM. He says, if we stuck at running back due to injury or otherwise, do you have confidence moving Lynn Bowden to running back? If we suck at do I have confidence moving Lynn Bowden to running back? I don't know if he would be a good, true running back. He's more of a gadget guy. A gadget possession slot kind of a guy. So no, I don't think I would really have confidence in that. This next question comes from SM. He says, is the team good enough to beat Buffalo yet? Yeah, it's good enough, for sure. It's good enough. It was good enough if people forget, we were close to beating them in Miami. If we could have just got off the field in that third and long situation, the game would have been completely different. Obviously, we give up the big play to John Brown, but But yeah, we definitely can beat them. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Who is your favorite Dolphin on the 21 squad? An all-time favorite?" Right now, man, that's a tough. I don't really have a favorite right now. I just like the team. I think my favorite guy on the Dolphins is Brian Flores. That's my favorite guy associated with how the team does. I think he's my favorite. In terms of the player, I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I love Jerome and the way he plays the game. It's mostly defensively, I would say. But yeah, that's a tough one. I love X. I don't really have a favorite right now. I love Tua, even though he hasn't really put up the numbers, but I do love the way Tua plays the game, and I'm looking forward to his career. So yeah, that's a tough one. An all-time favorite, that's another tough one. But in terms of like what he meant to the organization, the stories, and the lore, and the mystique around him, I would probably say Dan Marino. This next question comes from SM. He says, "I know it's the dead time, but does the lack of a movement in the free agent market worry you, or are we set?" I don't think. I mean, we've been pretty active. I mean, people forget that we signed like people like Adam Butler earlier in the year, and made some smaller moves. I think like I said, I think you're gonna at least get another running back. This next question comes from Richard. He says, "Who should Dolphins put the franchise tag on after the season?" This is a great question, by the way. He says, "Who should the Dolphins put the franchise tag on after the season?" I have a feeling that Mike Gesicki will leave the Dolphins and go play for a hometown team like Philly, the Giants, or the Jets. The Dolphins won't pay big money for him. That leaves Ogba and Will Fuller out of the three. The Dolphins should tag Fuller because he can change the game real quick with a touchdown catch from anywhere on the field. Well, we have to see about Will Fuller because he's been consistently hurt his entire career. So we'll have to wait on that. Mike Gesicki, I think for him to be a priority to come back to the team, he's got to put up big numbers. And kind of build on what he did last year. But you make a great point. Like, he's still got those strong hometown ties. And the Dolphins already got Jerome Baker, but locked up. I think you make a great point, but I think somehow they're going to get it done. They're getting a ton of cap space next year. I think they can get all three of those guys back. I think Will Fuller will be the hardest to get back if he has a great year, but Mike Gesicki and Emmanuel Ogba, I fully expect to be back next year. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. I always have fun doing it. Look forward to a lot of new stuff coming out this year. We're trying to get all of the things done and add new content to the channel. And we might be doing a collab. I'm gonna reach out to see if we can't get some collabs going on other channels, and hopefully that can get done this week. And very soon in the near future, I definitely hope to have guests on the show. I'm already getting a list together of people that I want to do first, and I'm very excited about that too. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.